We were then told that we had to march a long way and we had to carry our own gear with us. So, as like everybody did, I left my trunk of stuff behind and carried a few necessities, just a few things that I needed for the trip. My story about the march up was one of exhaustion, more than anything else, plain exhaustion. We started off and walked long distance. I think we went 15 to 20 kilometres the first day, carrying what gear we had. Our first stop was we stopped somewhere. I think not too good on names now, but the second stop was at Canterbury, and that's where we spent our first overnight. I got my first attack of asthma in my life when I got to Canterbury, so I was going to be short of breath anyhow on the trip. Very little in the way of treatment. I think someone was able to give me some ephedrine while I was at the prisoner of war camp there. That's where Alan Hazelon was in charge at Canterbury. From then on, our march, my recollection is a march, that we would march by night, rest by day, march by night, rest by day, and then have a day's rest, where we could wash our clothes and do ourselves. The march was through jungle paths, elephant paths, usually single file, so that if people got tired in front of you and dropped back, they'd lose the people in front. And then when the time came to stop to have a rest, it would take us time to catch up with them before it was time to move on again. So my memory is just one of exhaustion. Helping some of the troops who fell back, being a medical officer, we had that responsibility, arranging for their mates to help them on and carry their gear on many occasions. Rain poured quite often while we were there. We walked through mud and slush, and at night time was the only way you had of knowing where you were going, to keep your eyes on the man in front of you. I know you've had many funny stories about it, but the story I remember best of all is we halted, and we seemed to be a prolonged halt, so I went forward to see what the trouble was, and the fellow stopped behind a tree. He thought that was the troops in front of him. So it took us quite a long time to catch up with the people in front. There are many every stories like that. When we got to the stops overnight, we spent most of our time looking after the fellows with dysentery and diarrhoea, and not much malaria at that stage, but did have some cases of malaria. Diarrhoea was the worst thing that we seemed to come across. Blistered heels, people with their shoes full of blood. They kept on marching on under these conditions. I can remember a particular officer by the name of Lewis, whose boots were full of blood. He wouldn't take his shoes off because he wouldn't be able to get them back on again. Lying in the camps at night was often a broken sleep. I remember one night there was tremendous noise in the camp. I was woken up and those branches were breaking down. The sense we'd been invaded. The next morning we found that a herd of elephants had gone through the camp, and the water bottle that I had been carrying next to my pillow was squashed flat. No wonder I woke up with noise in the middle of the night. Isn't it good to look back on those sort of incidents about the railway line, because to be quite candid, it's almost impossible to recollect the misery that we had in that, lifting one foot after the other through the mud, and pushing away through the bushes. And, it was pretty horrifying, let me just say that.
Yes, you mentioned Adrian Lewis. Did you have much contact with him?
Adrian Lewis, I saw a fair bit of him at the prisoner of war camp, and I saw not much on the railway line. I didn't see him. I was in camp with him on the march on several occasions, because I was the medical officer with him. he was so badly that I tried to get him to stop at the camp and get treatment and come on with the next lot, but he wouldn't do that. He persisted going with his troops, and he stayed with his troops. I think he went off with Roy Mills and his group, I think, when we went on to Nicky.
Did you have to, I'm looking for the word, excuse some of the guys from the march when you stopped on occasions?
Did we have to?
Did you have to leave some of them behind because they weren't able to march on?
Yes.
And the Japs accepted that at the time?
Yes, they did. They didn't like it. They didn't like it, but they could see themselves, the condition these fellows were in, they allowed them to stay on and catch up with the next group. And we picked up others who had been left behind by other groups.
I understand. What about the cooking at these rest stops?
I can't remember much.
No. Okay. So you marched through, and did you get up as far as Nicky? Is that the main point where you stopped initially?
Yes, Nicky was the first camp we stayed at.
Yes.
And
what was that like?
It was on the bank of the river. It wasn't. If the camping site was quite a pleasant site, if I remember right. I told you at the beginning of this that my recollection of lots of things are hazy. I can remember incidents.
Yes.
And I can remember the bathing in the river at Nicky.
Yes.
I don't remember I didn't have a hospital there. I was in charge of the troops that went out to work. And I remember the tough decisions to be made because the Japs demanded a certain number of people who went out to work, and some of them were too sick to go. But if I didn't select the ones to go, the Japs did.
Yes.
So I had the unenviable job of sending people out who were unfit to work to go out and work. That is my most poignant memory of the Nicky camp.